Hey guys. So, I just want to kind of go over, break down the different storylines going on right now, especially coming out of WrestleMania weekend. We have obviously just had Monday Night Raw. We have not had SmackDown yet. We'll get there. So let's just discuss some of the Raw storylines that we've seen now coming out of WrestleMania weekend, and kind of what we've moved on with so far. Okay, so we had a record-breaking 17-time champion crowned at WrestleMania, right? And coming out of WrestleMania weekend, we assume that that's it for John Cena. That's what he was telling us, right? We found out on Monday Night Raw that might not necessarily be true. Randy Orton came out and he RKO'd John Cena as he was celebrating in the ring the 17th win. So, this is kind of interesting because we're getting a different take on this, right? We are getting a heel John Cena potentially against a babyface Randy Orton. How cool is this? I'm super excited to see it where this leads. And we probably get this at Backlash. They will probably continue to build this. And John Cena is not done. Monday night was supposed to be his last appearance. And that is not happening. Now, whether or not Randy gets this title, or whether John hangs on to it, one thing that he did say is probably true. If Randy does not take this title from John, they will probably come up with a different title. They will probably create another one and crown a new champion. He was absolutely right about that. And up until Monday Night Raw, I think that's what most of us assumed was just going to happen. We didn't really think that they might swerve us and continue a storyline. And this might still happen. We may still get a completely new title. That is hard to say. As the weeks move on now out of WrestleMania, we'll find out whether or not they are truly building up to a match between John and Randy. That was never stated definitively whether or not that was going to happen or not. What we do know is that Randy did come out and RKO John, essentially confronting him. So, that's one of the storylines that we have seen coming out of WrestleMania. The next one that we'll look at is the women's tag division. So, a lot to unpackage there, right? Because we had new champions crowned at WrestleMania. And coming out of WrestleMania with Becky and Lyra taking those titles, WWE could have went two different ways with that. They could have made this absolutely dynamic Irish duo that could have just demolished everything, right? They could have showcased the Irish women's strength. That is one way they could have went. They also could have taken that, seeing as how Lyra always has looked up to Becky as an inspiration. They could take that and make one of the biggest storylines as far as two women that emotionally have a lot going on, right? So that is the direction that they went. Becky turns on Lyra, and Becky has been herself turned on at least twice. We had once with Natalya, who she was tag teaming with, and she turned on her. And then when Becky held the tag titles that she'd won with Lita, and Trish came in and was stepping in for Lita, when they lost the titles, Trish turned on Becky. So this is something that Becky had happened to her herself. This time she turns on Lyra, which is kind of the opposite of when that happened with Trish. Because Trish, along with Lita, is one of the women that Becky looked up to, right? So this is kind of turning the tables on that and having someone that Lyra looked up to turning on her. So I imagine they're going to definitely play on that throughout this. Now, don't get me wrong, when the match finished, initially I was disappointed. For any of you that have followed me, you know that I am a Becky Lynch fan. So I really would have loved to have seen this be this powerful duo that could have went on for a long reign. That was not the story WWE was telling. They're going to tell this emotional story between Becky and Lyra, and how much Lyra is hurt by Becky doing this. At the end of the day, this is going to bring out the best of Lyra. I absolutely believe that. And I believe that that in turn is also going to bring out the best in Becky. Now, having said that, we have tried to see a heel side of Becky Lynch before. And it didn't quite go the way I would have liked it to. I don't know if it was just the way that WWE was presenting her as the heel that just didn't really jive with me. And I don't really think that it jived with a lot of other people either, which is part of the reason they really wanted to do away with that heel side of Becky Lynch. So hopefully they take a different approach to this, and this does bring out a good heel Becky Lynch. Time will tell with that, though. We also, not done with that necessarily, we don't know where this is leading as far as the women's IC title. It could be that Becky is the next one in line to go after that. That is going to be one of those things that we will see as the next couple of weeks progress, because nothing has been said about that, but that could be the direction that they're going with for Backlash for the women's IC title. A possibility there. Alright, the next storyline that we're going to talk about coming out of this, we have new tag team champions. Right, so we have Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods, the New Day, tag team champions once again, this time on a heel side. We get the impression from Monday Night Raw like their next challengers are going to be Akira Tozawa and Otis. I don't know that that's going to necessarily happen, because Eric and Ivar also came out definitely letting them know that they are not done. They are going to be coming back for those titles. Now, before we can even get to that, we get a return. And how this is tying into the tag team division, I'm not entirely sure, and I'm not 100% sure why exactly they placed it during this tag team conversation, but Rusev is back. There had been rumors since he was done with AEW. Does he come back to WWE? Clearly, yes, he is here. We don't have a definitive plan for him yet. He attacked Akira Tozawa and Otis. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. First of all, he was by himself. So, that clearly doesn't place him in the tag team division, right? Unless there's something happening along with him that did not necessarily happen on Monday Night Raw. Time will tell with that if that's the direction they're going. Don't really know. And it may just have been a start to showing him as this very powerful character, this monster of a person, right? As they called him, the Bulgarian Brute. That was what he was known as. People were definitely very happy to see him back, and I feel like he learned a lot in AEW from when he left WWE, but I also feel like before he left WWE, he was beginning to kind of connect to the fans. They were starting to be able to get behind him and kind of understand him. On the other hand, by attacking Otis and Akira Tozawa, clearly a babyface team, we don't know exactly how that places him yet. time is going to tell there. It's still way too early for him returning to figure out exactly what the place is that they have envisioned for Rusev. All right. The next storyline that we had coming out of WrestleMania, Io Sky retaining the World Women's Championship. We don't know exactly where this leads, right? Because Stephanie Vecchio comes out, and right now she is the NXT Women's Champion. So I don't know that she is necessarily the next challenger. And from this segment, you get Rhea coming out to give Io the title back because it was dropped in the ring when Roxanne Perez and Julia attacked. It was a cool yet disappointing segment because you have Stephanie Vecchio and Io having a tremendous match. It really was. It was a great match. And it gets interrupted. And I think for the sole purpose, part of it was to give a feel for how are these three women going to be accepted by the Raw and SmackDown audiences. And by that I mean Stephanie, Julia, and Roxanne Perez. Now, except for Stephanie, I want to say Julia has been presented to the Raw and SmackDown audience as well as Roxanne Perez, so they know who these people are. They've been seen before. But how, on the Raw after Mania, it's one of those that a lot of people are going to be paying attention to, right? You're going to get this somewhat rambunctious crowd that is still riding the high from WrestleMania. So it's going to give you that idea of how are they going to interact with this crowd? Is this crowd going to connect to them? Are they going to care? And that is what you need to have before you officially call someone up or officially give them some kind of storyline. You need to get a feel for how that audience is going to accept them, if they're going to. So unfortunately, that was the purpose of this. It wasn't, the match itself wasn't necessarily the purpose, which is unfortunate because they were putting on a killer match. They really were. It was great. But that is, Stephanie is not next for Io, and you see that in Rhea coming out and essentially saying, I am not done with this. I'm coming for this title. And that's what happens there. The next storyline that we want to break down is the World Heavyweight Championship title picture. All that has going for it. We have Jey Uso, a new World Heavyweight Champion. Awesome to see. I've always thought Jey Uso was going to be going places. He was really connecting to the fans. So it's great to see him in this place. And he got a lot of respect with Jimmy coming out, his brother, and Sami Zayn. And that was a really cool moment for all of them. The moment to take from this is this. So, after the celebration itself was done in the ring, guys, they had moved to a commercial break. When they came back, you see Gunther out there. Keeping in mind that Gunther is the one that Jay just took the title from. And he is yelling at Michael Cole. He pushes Pat McAfee after he knocks the headset off of Michael Cole. And as he pushes Pat McAfee, Michael Cole is standing up to Gunther. He's not going to back down, right? So Gunther takes him and is essentially choking Michael Cole out. And that does not last very long because Pat McAfee comes in and starts hitting him to get him off of his announce team member, right? As he should, right? They gotta stick together, right? So, while that's happening, Gunther is not happy about this, and he ends up putting Pat McAfee in a chokehold. Now, if you're watching this video, and it is even brought up by Pat McAfee when he's on his podcast later, that you can see there are people that are trying to help get Gunther off of Pat, but there are also even more people, to some extent, that are checking on Michael Cole. Okay? And one of the things that was brought up by Pat McAfee, while he appreciates all the help of those that were trying to help get Gunther off of him, he wished more of those people, while he's glad that they were checking on Michael, he could have used a little more help. And so in the podcast, one of the other things that he's doing is he is talking to The Rock, right? Because he is part of the ownership group of this whole production, right? So he essentially is telling him, you need to get your people in line. And by that, he's talking about essentially the superstars themselves. Like, you need to make sure that these people understand you don't attack the announce staff. This is not called for. So I thought that was kind of a neat touch that they are kind of continuing that on there. The other bit of this is they take this backstage, right, after the incident happened. And Michael Cole is helping Pat McAfee back to medical. And they take Pat back into that room to check on him, get him water, make sure he's doing good. And Adam is checking on Michael and essentially telling him to take the rest of the night off. They had Joe Tessitore went down to kind of take over for them so that he could kind of compose himself, relax, like get himself situated. And essentially, I thought it was awesome that Michael Cole was like, "No, I'm not gonna be bullied. I am here to do a job, and I have a right to state my opinion on how I feel about certain superstars and what they're doing. And I'm not going to be bullied." And so he went back out. He told Adam Pearce, I'm fine. I'm not going to be bullied and taking the rest of the day off because this guy decided to attack us. I'm just for having an opinion. So he goes back out, and I thought that was very awesome of Michael Cole to, first of all, stand up for Pat McAfee, but also then for having the strength to go out and finish out the show. So, one next storyline that we should break down is the Intercontinental Championship itself. So Dominic Mysterio won this title from Bron Breakker, and this presented some questions in and of itself from the time that he won it to Monday Night Raw that I was very interested to see exactly how that would play out. One thing to note, when Judgment Day appears, when they enter the arena, Finn Balor is not with. Now, for those that are not necessarily following the storylines, Finn Balor was in the match that Dominic Mysterio won the IC title in. So he essentially won it to some extent from Finn, and to some extent from Finn, because he had hit the coup de grace. And Dominic kind of took the win from that, though. So the question then became, how is Finn going to react to this? And the fact that he wasn't there when they arrived had me questioning exactly how mad he was going to be. Now, when Dominic comes out to defend this title against Penta on Monday Night Raw, Finn is there. He seems very proud of Dominic. So that answers that question for now. But we'll see if that lasts, and that is going to be the question. Now, the next question is, does Finn decide to go to Adam Pearce to try to get a match against Dominic himself? Possibly. It is a route to go. Time will tell whether that's the route they go for the IC title. It's hard to say. One thing that I can say, based on other moments that happened within Monday Night Raw, I don't necessarily see the number one priority for Bron Breakker being getting that title back. So we're going to go ahead and talk about that storyline in connection to that. So Seth Rollins comes out, and we'll combine these here in just a moment. So Seth comes out, and of course, based on some of the things that he says, it sparks CM Punk as well as Roman Reigns coming on out. Roman spearing CM Punk and about to spear Paul Heyman. And I really don't remember whether he speared Seth or not. He might not. I don't honestly remember. But at any rate, Braun Breaker comes out and eats that spear from Roman in place of Paul Heyman. So that sets us up with this partnership of Seth and Braun Breaker, both as kind of Heyman guys. So this is interesting, because that attack continues. It was not just that spear to Roman, it was continued afterwards outside of the ring. So we'll see how that plays out there. I don't know, and here's why I say I don't know that that's going to be Braun's first priority. It could be. Right? So Seth and Braun could go after Finn and Dominic. That is a route that they could go with that storyline. It's hard to say. We'll find out as time goes on there and where they move forward with that storyline. But that's where that is right now. As far as Seth, Braun Breaker, Paul Heyman, even Roman Reigns and CM Punk. We'll see what's going on there. Now, next storyline that we'll go over is this ongoing storyline that we want to break down between Karrion Kross and AJ Styles. I feel like we are going to get that Karrion Kross and AJ Styles match at Backlash, potentially. So this breaks down that Kross has been routinely trying to give AJ tips, right? He's been trying to help him out. And he even, to some extent, did that at WrestleMania when AJ Styles was going up against, who was he? I honestly now am blanking on who AJ Styles was going up against. Oh, Logan Paul. Wow. That I could forget that. Wow. So, he's going up against Logan Paul. Logan is about to use the brass knuckles. And Karrion Kross stops that. Now, you would think that AJ would be happy about this, but to some extent he is, to some extent he's not. To some extent he sees it as a distraction. Now, at the end of the day, while this is happening, Logan is collecting himself while Karrion Kross is trying to give AJ the brass knuckles, and he will not use them, even though he could. And so Monday Night Raw sees Kross essentially trying to tell AJ how stupid he thought that decision was. So we'll see where this goes from here. I think we see this at Backlash, potentially before then. We will see. It's hard to say. We might. And those are the storylines we have coming out of WrestleMania and Monday Night Raw. Obviously, as the weeks move on, we're going to learn more as to whether or not that is the direction they're going with these storylines, because some of them are just kind of starting to flesh themselves out. So we will see what happens from there. Looking forward to much more. We will see you guys later. We're going to get ready for SmackDown coming up on Friday night. Thank you.